Hello, today is September 22nd, 2020. My name is Cristián Doña-Reveco, and I am interviewing Karen Pesek for the Conversaciones Oral History Project, Voces of a Pandemic Project at the Office of Latino and Latin American Studies and Criss Library at UNO. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Ms. Pesek, that this interview will be placed in the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Dr. Cici and Mabel L. Criss Library, and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there's anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there's something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. Because we're not conducting this interview in person, I need to record your consent. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each one. There are several questions we need to make sure you agree before we go on. The Office of Latino and Latin American Studies and Criss Library wishes to archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Dr. Cici and Mabel L. Criss Library. UNO's Criss Library will retain copyright of the interview and any other materials you donate to the Office of Latino and Latin American Studies at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. First question. Do you give the Office of Latino and Latin American Studies consent to archive your interview and your materials at UNO's Criss Library?
I do.
Do you grant UNO's Criss Library right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
I do.
Do you agree to allow UNO's Criss Library to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
I do.
Do you grant the Office of Latino and Latin American Studies consent to share your interview and your materials with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
I do.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have many questions in a pre-interview form that we already filled out. We use that information from the pre-interview to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends it to the Benson Library and to the Criss Library, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members, so that it will not be part of your public file.
Okay.
Your public file will only be accessible at the Benson Library and Criss Library. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at the Benson?
Can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear you.
Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at the Benson Library?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, and final question. On occasion, the Office of Latino and Latin American Studies and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes.
So thank you, Karen. So, Sorry.
We should have a when your image freezes, I can tell you, I can hear you.
Okay.
It happened several times, so I was trying to guess what you were saying.
All right.
Hopefully,
sorry. So
will se estabilice.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What do you do? So that kind of thing.
Okay, so I was born in 1985 in Chihuahua, Mexico. It's a northern state in the Republic of Mexico. Grew up with my grandparents because my dad came to the U.S. To work, and he got amnesty under Reagan, and he entered the papers for me to be able to join the United States. and it just took years and years. And so I ended up growing up with his parents in Mexico while he was here working, and he was able to, he formed me out here. And then I came to the United States after high school, just because, we had worked to get these papers worked out, and then he wanted me to come and learn English to open more opportunities in Mexico for my career. So ended up coming after high school, only for a year was the plan, and go to community college and learn English. And then I was planning on going back and going to university. My life was in Mexico. And I had never lived with him, so that family dynamic was also, a little tricky. But to Columbus, Nebraska, which is where he ended up years and years ago. He's been here for about 30 years, almost 30 years. So, he came as one of the first waves of immigrants to come to work at the packing plants in Schuyler, Nebraska, and in Columbus. And so that's how he ended up in Nebraska, and that's why I followed him to come and learn English. And then, as fate will have it, I met the first week community college at Central Community College in Columbus. I met my husband, and we've been together ever since. So it was quite a love story. But yeah, so I graduated community college, and then I scholarship to go to Wayne State College, and I did my public accounting degree over there. My husband came with me, or I don't know if I went with him. He didn't say that. But so he went to Wayne, and he also got his degree. And then when it was time for him to go to law school, he went to Lincoln. And I was in Omaha just because I had a job with an accounting consulting firm that was sending me all over the country and in the world to do these jobs. And so I had that experience. Cool. And I did that for about a couple of years, a little over 2 years, while he was in law school. And I had the opportunity during those 2 years to go to Mexico City in a project that was going to be long term. It was going to be about a year. And I ended up staying 9 months at the end, but it was actually cut short because of the swine flu epidemic back then in 2009 it was. So I've had my experiences with diseases or pandemics. I don't think that one qualifies as a pandemic. And so I was talking about that trip because that trip was, I feel like it is one of my reasons and pillars to what I do today. Because we were very intentional with that trip, and I mean, me and my husband, I was there for the project for my company, but I brought my husband along. He actually put his scholarship on hold at UNL law school to go and learn Spanish. We always valued the language, being bilingual, as just a great tool in the world and just communicate with people. And so we put a lot of value on that, and we decided to do that. There was a little worries for our families. I suppose, they didn't think that he was sure what was going to happen. But we did come back after 9 months, and he finished law school, and I continued to work with the company until we were ready to be a family, and then that type of suitable for that life that we were wanting to face into. And so so I quit the corporate world, and I started kind of looking some things. I kind of debated whether or not go back to school, maybe open my own business. And while I was doing that, my husband finished law school, and then we decided to open a law firm right off the bat after law school. we could do it together. We felt confident, and we had a really good help with one of the attorneys, one of the law firms here in Omaha was kind enough to give him a really good deal where he was able to build his practice within their offices. And so I really ability to grow our own client base, and I was able to immerse myself in being a mom and also help on the side of the accounting and all of the business side of the business, managerial time of the business. So that's what I've been doing, and that's what I continue to do to this day.
And the law office and works directly with the community, right?
Yes.
You have a
Want to elaborate on that?
Yes, you have a scholarship for students. It's I don't know if it's directly connected to the law office, but it's part of your work, and you also work a lot with immigrants doing immigration law, right?
Yes. So I mentioned how important it was for us from the beginning of our relationship and our life together to kind of have this, I am proud of my Mexican heritage, and I, always strive for my family to be completely bilingual and be immersed in both cultures. And so we, in that kind of path, we also recognize how important it is to serve the community that is around us. We live in South Omaha, where it's an immigrant community. South Omaha used to be called the Magic City because it came out of nowhere because of all the packing plant jobs that just appeared, when back then. So it's the Magic City. It's a part of town that's always been an immigrant community, newcomers, the odd kids, and now we're there, and it's home. And so we definitely get involved as much as we can to our capacity. When the scholarship is called True Potential, and it's the way that is related to the law firm is that it came out of that. So my husband's first, when we opened the law, then about 12 years ago, he was doing everything. I mean, he was taking every case, he was hustling, and he took everything that would come through the door, and that was a lot of civil law, that was a lot of immigration, that was a lot of criminal stuff, immigration mixed. And so when in 2000 announced the DACA program, we had already met all of these clients of us that were, and actually I have to backtrack a little bit, because we a lot of people through a legal clinic that we have. We established a legal clinic as a way to reach out to the community. And at that time, in 2012, 2013, when we opened the law firm, there of bilingual attorneys that were unfortunately being disbarred because they were doing unethical things with immigrants. And so there was a need for reliable or guidance. And so we thought, us being part of the parish of Our Lady of Guadalupe and going to church every Sunday there, we know all these people here, and we know that they're the ones asking these questions. And so we decided to ask the father at that time, Jose Mendoza, to help us if he would let us host a where we just give free advice. And we were thinking on the way that it's free because he doesn't have a lot of experience, so he will do his best, and if he doesn't know the answer, he will tell you where to go. Somebody that is honest, somebody that is not going to trick you. And so that was our thinking at that time. And so throughout those years, we met a lot of people. I mean, the clinic is every Monday night, 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. You don't have to sign up. You just come to the parish and he talks to everybody. And actually, this is the first year that we haven't done it since the pandemic. We closed, we were able to do it this year. But from there, because we knew all of these people and we knew where their questions were, where their concerns were, we recognized immediately the opportunity when DACA was approved. We knew that there was going to be a pool of people that were going to want to go to school, that were not going to be able to pay for it. So there was a barrier there still, even if now they're able to work and they're able to drive, there's still the barrier that they don't have the resources to do. So we decided to get together with our friends and family and ask them for money and say, can you help us get money together to help these students go? And he went to the community colleges. He went to our alma mater first, Central Community College, and he spoke to the dean over there, and he spoke to the director of the foundation, and he said, can you match us? Can you help us get a bigger bang for a buck? And they said yes. And that I'm really appreciative because once we had them on board, then we were able to turn to Southeast Community College and say, hey, they're matching us. Can you help us? And can you help us get some more kids to school? And really amazing. It's one of the most rewarding things that I do. One of my favorite days of the year is to call those students the day that I have the results, and I call them and I tell them that they got the scholarship. I'm really looking to that one. Every year, and so yeah, that's the scholarship. We have done it for this is our 7th year doing it. We just granted 21 scholarships this year, but it's been over 120 scholarships to different students over 7 years. And we have the support of all the main community colleges in Nebraska. All of the community colleges in Nebraska, they match our contributions. Metro doesn't match our contributions, but they do other things for us that help us get the kids on board. And so we've been just blown away by all the support that we've gotten program.
Thank you. No, that's a wonderful program. So you mentioned at some point that this is the first year that you haven't opened the clinic at the parish because of COVID. So can you tell me a little bit about when was the first that you heard about COVID?
The first time that I heard about it was, I believe it was January. It was still in China, or we didn't identify it as being here, or yeah, that's when I heard it was January.
And you mentioned also that you lived in Mexico during swine flu in 2009. What was your reaction to this thing that was coming from China, the COVID, this pandemic?
The new one? Well, first, when I started seeing things popping up in the news, I thought that it was just going to stay there, that it wasn't going to be here. I didn't see it as a real problem for us. Then I believe when we take a trip to Mexico every year around Valentine's Day. And I remember at that time I was thinking about, I was worrying if I was going to be able to go or if I was going to be able to travel back and all that. So that was definitely a little bit more concerning once I had traveled, that I had to take into consideration with everything going on.
Was then when you thought this is really serious, or it was more later in March when we started seeing the first cases here in Omaha?
I didn't hear you.
Okay. So was it then around your trip to Mexico that you finally thought, this is serious, this is the big thing? Or was it later when we started seeing cases here in Omaha?
It was when I was actually in Mexico. Our trip was for about a month long. We did the trip on purpose to get our kids immersed in the language. And so, we were there from February 15 through March 15. It was the day that we were supposed to come, and that's the weekend that everything happened. And I remember being very worried about being able to come back to the US. It definitely felt very, very alarming. And I don't know if it was intensified a little bit by the fact that I was out of the country, and I was concerned about just not being at home. So that definitely added to the stress. And then we had that situation happening to us on our way back. So we traveled to Houston, and then from Houston, was it Houston or Dallas? It was one of the big, I think it was Dallas. So we traveled from where we are in Zihuatanejo to Dallas, and then from Dallas to Omaha. And it was the day, March 15th, I believe it was a Saturday. It was the first day that the Trump administration had put some bans on some travel bans. I don't know exactly what the countries affected, but it was the day that we were traveling back that these rules were into effect, and they had just been announced hours or a day before. And so people were not prepared. When we got to the airport, it's evident that this was not something that was thought through, because we were stuck in the immigration area of the airport in this enormous room with hundreds and hundreds of travelers that were coming from Europe right next to us in the same room, and they didn't have enough people. They didn't for the backlog of people that they had. And so we were there for about 5 hours. We were in a line, and we were shoulder to shoulder with of travelers. People were coughing, people were sneezing. My kids are little, and they're, my 5-year-old at that time, because we couldn't get out of line, it was so crowded, and we couldn't leave. We just stuck in that little space for these hours. And I don't know if you've been in that situation before, but not ideal. And when you add, it would be worrisome if it was just a regular situation, but when you add the pandemic to it, oh my God, believe that they would do that to all of these travelers in such a huge airport that you would think they would have it together.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. I've been for a long time in airports, but never on these conditions. I can only imagine how stressful that must have been. So you came back right on time, and then life here in Omaha was changing rapidly. I remember OPS moved to an online setting around those days, around mid-March. So you came back to basically a new setting. How did that impacted you and your children here in Omaha and your work?
When we arrived back here after the situation with the airport, I heard my husband was thinking, we'll go to work on Monday and everything was going to be fine. But then all of this stuff happened that weekend, and then school was canceled and all of that. So I was kind of trying to tell him, I think this is more more serious, like I think everybody's going to close and everybody's going to isolate. And he kind of got it after he like read some of it, because I think he was kind of trying to avoid reading about it. And then that day when he like read about it and knew about it, he was like, yeah, definitely we're not going. And so we thankfully we have the flexibility of being business owners. That gives us tremendous flexibility. We were able to move our team to online. We told everyone we needed to get our computers out of the office and into their homes during that week. It took us 1 week for our team to the office at our home, and we never really had an interruption of work. In that way, we were able to do virtually everything that we would do otherwise for the week. My kids here not going to school was a big change. They were already out of school for a month because we were in Mexico. So for me, it was I thought they were going to be way more behind than everybody else. So that was worrying me. And then the teachers at the beginning were doing, they didn't know what they were doing. We were all trying to figure out Zoom and all of the stuff that they use at school for meetings. So it was very frustrating. I was not able to do any of my tasks for actual work because I had to take care of the kids or be with the kids or make sure that the kids were quiet when my husband had a or something on the phone or something, so those things, when because of the nature of our work, that it's a legal firm, and he has to be out there doing all the work. I'm the one that had to fall in the role of, not had to, but got to get in the role of taking care of the kids and managing it. And so it was incredibly it was a big adjustment.
Yeah, of course. And the people that you work with, were they able to? You said that they started working from their homes and everything. Were they having the same issues as you? Did you see any changes with them?
Well, can you repeat the last part of what you said? I didn't hear you.
If the people that you were working with, the people that work at your office, you mentioned that they were able to take their jobs home, but how has it been the relationship? Have you been able to talk to them regularly? Have you been kept all the same staff, or you have to sadly fire some people because of COVID, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many to unpack there, right? Our staff were 6 people total, so counting my husband. So 4 people out of the 4, 3 are older adults, and then we have a young 22-year-old UNO student. Maybe you know him, Eric Lopez. And so it affected us differently. I know that, for example, for one of our employees, it was difficult to get things going just technologically at her house. And so Eric, the younger guy, was out there helping her and trying to get everything set up. He was very helpful in that way. He and go and grab a cable that they forgot and bring it back to the office. And so we had a team that, I don't know, was able to kind of adapt to what we needed to do and got it done. So I was so incredibly proud of them, because in just 1 week, they offered again virtually. However, I do notice, I do remember, and it's been so long now, I feel like I have so many stages of how everything was, and then I don't know, kind of, but I do remember that it got to a point where after not seeing each other for months, I remember that very heavy on and us, it felt like we needed to be together. We have a good, I feel like we have a good team and a good work environment. So I feel like we needed that interaction with each other. And I remember reading on a blog of a friend who has her law firm. She was talking about how in her law firm, they talked about implementing care days, which is, I think it was like a day where you were allowed to not work and just have like a day for self-care and just and let go of all this craziness for a little bit. And so I remember that when I read that, I was like, okay, it's happening to other people too. We're all getting exhausted. And it is not that it's not my team or anything. It's just that it's affecting everybody. Yeah, I mean, that's the best way that I could describe it. We did eventually go back to the office. I don't remember exactly went back into the office, but the force driving that decision was one of our employees, the older employee who lives with her daughter, and that's it. She was feeling very isolated and she needed a routine, and she talked to us about it, and she said, I want to go back to the office even if I'm there alone. I want to go every once in a while. And I mean, once she started followed, they wanted to be, so they started going, like they were interchanging days. And I would say I remained here. I've been here the entire time. And my husband, he started going to the office as well about the same time that everybody did. But so yes, we're back to the office, but definitely it's different. We're all wearing masks. It's really strange.
But you also go to church every week. Obviously church was canceled. How's that part of your life affected? And how do you cope with it?
Yeah. So we attend a church called Urban Abbey, and they are very good at adapting. Like, I don't know how other churches are doing it, I guess, but they had their service online right away via Facebook. And so we continue to attend the virtual, which they already had, by the way. They already had set up from before the pandemic. So it was very easy because I used to do it every once in a while. I wasn't able to attend. I would hear or listen to the transmissions. And so we have been able to connect with that community in that way. But that even has changed. It's different. It's I feel like I need to be in a room, share this part of my life with people who are there to support me and are there for each other. And so definitely just not having that contact has changed it, but we continue to look at the services online and try to plan carefully and things to move back into going to church in person. I did attend First Communion for one of my nephews, and I was the sponsor. So that was interesting because it was a lot of people. So it surprised me the contrast of how one church was handling it and the other one church was handling things. Like the Urban Abbey person, even today, and the Catholic church that I went to in Schuyler, Nebraska, is having their church services with masks, and then they sit people one pew every other pew or whatever, and then so there's less people, but it really shocked me to be in a room so public with so people. I felt it,
Yeah, of course. Now let's talk a little bit about the impact of COVID in the community. You you participate you participated in several organizations in the community, and you still participate. You also have this legal clinic. So you live in the community directly. So how do you think, or how have you seen the impact of COVID-19 in the Latino community in Omaha?
Well, we don't have to go so far. I can see it in just in my business with my employees. I have seen them struggle with the disease or with their loved ones. Some of them, those family members, have been lucky enough to recover, and some of them have not. And so just to have people in our circle that are so close to us die, and actually, you know, like several actual deaths, it's impactful. And so I think about it from the viewpoint of an employee, of an employer. I have seen the devastation of COVID in the hardworking families. Our employees' families have been greatly affected by the disease. I see them worrying, I see them stressed out, and we try to do our best to support them. I'm proud to be a stable source of employment for each of those team members. But at the same time, I feel frustrated that it took so long to establish mandatory measures so that we could slow the spread of the virus from the very beginning. So, you know, I can see it, and there's nothing I can do about it. I just try to be, you know, there for them, and that's what we do. So that's the larger community. Just in my last interview, or the initial interview with you, I told you that nobody in my family had been diagnosed with COVID. Well, my sister called us to tell us that she was diagnosed with COVID, and we had seen her just last weekend. So I had to get tested, and I came back negative just yesterday. But you know, it's happening, and it just makes me wonder, like, why are people saying that it's not happening? It is happening.
It is very much. And what about the access to legal assistance? Are you still doing it online? Are you still have the legal clinic, or simply you haven't seen any? Or
well, we had the clinic for this is our 9th year. We did hold it, you know, in January and February, and then when we were away on a trip, and there were a couple of friend attorneys that came for those those months that we were away. But then we got after we came back from Mexico, and so this is the first time that my husband hasn't been consistently going every Monday to Our Lady of Guadalupe from 7 to 9 to get these consults. I feel I feel so guilty. I feel like we should be out there giving, you know, our service to whoever needs it. You know, because of the pandemic, all the other problems did not disappear. They're still there. So I know that people are having a lot of questions, and I guess that's the best way to describe it. I feel a little bit we're not there to help, but we're working on that, and we're hoping that we can go back. I feel that clinic is very valuable to the community. We've always had people for the last 8 years. Every Monday, there's somebody there to ask a question. So I feel that it's a valuable thing that we have to keep going.
Yes, and what about the other organizations that you participate in the community?
Well, I am also on the Urban Abbey's finance board of directors. I don't know how they call it, but for that, I have seen. So I've been helping them apply for, you know, help loans and whatever grant that they may be eligible for. I've done that for not only them, but for my family members that have businesses. I've done it for my own business. And so I just, the way I see it, I try to just try and do whatever I can that is reachable, that is under my reach, to help people in the community that are being affected by this. And in Urban Abbey, I have seen just a worry about the uncertainty of having a restaurant business. It's a church coffee shop.
Yes.
And so this is the coffee shop aspect of it, just not to be able to host anybody, not to be, their whole values are about connection and including everyone. And so, but there's none, then it's so sad. And so I see it from that side, on that part, how it's just, and contact and connection is so important in so many ways, and I see it there very clearly.
Now, you still have family in Mexico, right?
I didn't hear you.
You still have family in Mexico.
Yes.
And Mexico has been really hard hit by the pandemic. And I know from being away from family, my parents live in Chile. We as immigrants also worry about the home country, the other place. How do you, how have you been in contact with your family permanently? Have you helped them more or less? How has been that relationship?
What was the last question, the last part to what you said?
So you've helped them more or less. How has been being away from family members in a different country during COVID?
Yeah, it has been so hard. In the part of the family in Mexico, I worry about, sick, are they going to have access to the best care that they have available, to the best care available? Are they going to have access to it? To be okay? And I just worry because maybe it's my ignorance. I don't know if I'm right on this, but I feel like maybe we're a little bit more advanced or more access to healthcare over here than over there. I don't know, but that's what I think about. That's my main worry, that if somebody does need hospitalizations and medicine and whatever is needed, is it available for them? I'm also worried about, because I know that it's politically, it's also kind of a mess over there, and just I worry about leadership. I worry that they have people to lead them through this. But I guess that's everywhere, because I worry about that too here. And yes, not seeing my family, I added that month that we were in Mexico, so it really felt so sad. Like it was so, I don't know, I wanted to go and see my dad, the grandparents, but no, we couldn't go. So I think we ended up seeing them by the end of the summer. We saw them, but it was a while, and it was tough to stay away. And then we had a family death as well, where Ross, my husband's granddad, died. He was in a nursing home, and it wasn't COVID related, but it was so sad to not be able to be there. It was really tough. And then after he passed, we couldn't attend the funeral until after a month later. So just to think that he didn't have the funeral that he deserved. We loved them dearly, and so we were very sad that things went this way. Last time for him,
Yeah, of course. One thing I didn't get from your words, is your father back in Mexico, or he's here in Skylar still?
He's here. He's
Okay.
in Columbus.
Oh, sorry, Columbus. Those are more or less my questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with me about your experience with COVID-19 that I have not asked you about?
Well, I wonder where people is to go and look at the rest of the interviews of this project, because I'm thinking about how are people dealing with it. It just felt so lonely, and then when you're not, like the feelings, they're not things that you can like put out there for people, and then you cannot see them. So how are you gonna know how you're feeling, And so it's kind of, for me, it's I wonder what we as a society are getting out of recognizing how the importance of the little things, the importance of human contact, the importance of a hug, and so I hope that there is something good that comes out of that. If it's at least the appreciation to those little things that make life worth it.
Yes, I hope the same. So thank you very much, Karen. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing your story about COVID with me and with the project. If you want to see the other interviews, they're all available on YouTube. Just Google Voces of a Pandemic.
Okay.
And so far, I think that we're close to 70 interviews in the US, in different parts of the US. So that, yes, so that is it's for us. It's for us to see how we've all dealt with this pandemic.
Yeah. So thank you so much. It was interesting.
Yes, good luck with everything.